I'm absolutely convinced that rent vesting as a strategy in 2025 is going to be your gateway to getting to financial freedom quicker. If you guys are interested in what my thoughts are, then definitely keep watching. Hey guys, my name is Ravi and welcome back to Personal Finance with Ravi Sharma. If you're new here, smash that subscribe button because I talk about real estate, personal development, and financial freedom. Now, right now, if you're thinking about getting into the property market, not sure how you're going to do it, the key is to get a book. And the Retire Filthy Rich real estate book is the #1 bestseller right now, thanks to your support. So if you guys want to check out my first ever book, it's coming out in February, but you can pre-order and get some savings on top of that. I'll leave a link in the description box below so you can secure your discount. Get ready for the new year on the right footing. Thank you again for supporting the journey and becoming the #1 bestseller across multiple categories and even spending some time in the top 100 books bestsellers on Amazon across all of Australia. Now let's jump into something that is quite sensitive, but honestly at this point I've been talking about for 4 years. And the reason I've been talking about this so passionately is because I do exactly this, which is for a long period of time, I lived at home and I was fortunate because my parents didn't get me to pay board or rent. And I'm super grateful for that. Now, during that time, it didn't mean I just sat at home. I took up multiple jobs and that's pretty much the story around building a portfolio. I learned why financial literacy is so important. So I used to work really hard, use that money to enjoy life and travel and whatnot. But I also used to use that to go and buy property. Real estate investing for me was using leverage to grow out a foundation portfolio. Now, about 4.5 years ago, I decided to move out of home and I started renting with my partner. Now, the first thing you realize is no, mum's not gonna cook you any food and that's a really shit go. And secondly, as adults, you feel like all you're really doing is figuring out what you're gonna have for dinner, which is why during the pandemic, I put on a lot of weight and why I used to have KFC twice a week. Now, I still love KFC, but I'm only allowed to have it once every month. And I say allow, I allow myself. I'm trying to keep myself accountable. But more importantly, I decided to rent even though we could afford to go and buy a house. Now, I know that there's a logical reasoning for this and an emotional reasoning for this. And I'm gonna share with you both. Most people are purchasing real estate and getting on the property ladder because they wanna build wealth. Sure, there's security and we all want that. We want a place to live and know that no one's gonna kick us out. And then you also want home ownership. I was born here in Sydney and I've lived my entire life here. So I understand the Australian dream and fascination with having your own property is a large reason why I'm so emotional about owning my own house. And if you guys want to deep dive around what my house is going to be, the dream house and timelines, definitely leave me a comment down below saying dream house with Ravi. And I think I'm going to make that video for you guys. It's something that I hold very close to my heart. But coming back on track with rent vesting, if we had the option of buying a place, we could probably afford something. But would it be the dream house? And no, it definitely wouldn't, because the dream house costs $7 or $8 million to be honest. And what we could have afforded at that time was probably about $1.5 million worth. Now, I'm not saying 1.5 is something to just say, well, that's a shit house. I still think that you would have got something amazing at that time. Now, fast forward where we're at now, I could tell you now, we've lived in a couple of different areas in Sydney, and I thought those areas were the ones that I wanted to live in forever. And once I rented there, I realized I didn't want to live there anymore. And what would have been a really sucky situation is if we had bought there, because we would have bought and then been house proud and gone, now we can't change from going and buying a house, owning a home, and then potentially going and renting somewhere. And that's just all emotion speaking. I'm going to showcase with you a real life example of my life right now with the numbers and why it still makes sense for a lot of people, including you, to go and rent instead of buy something. Now, by the end of this video, you're probably going to realize that logically it still makes sense, but the emotions are still greater and I still want certainty and less volatility. So I want to go buy my own home, and that's completely fair. But I urge you to stick all the way through this video because I think if you keep an open mind, there might be one of you guys that convert and understand that the logical side of things makes a lot of sense. I hear day in, day out, people arguing, people stressing, and people complaining about not liking their job. But the fact is that you have created an environment where you've become stuck because of the choices you've made financially. And one of those decisions is buying a house. So let's use the example that I'm in right now. I moved into this penthouse a couple of years ago. So it's been about 2 years and my rent started at $1,200 a week and now it's gone up to $1,320 a week. Now it's also going to go up again in about 3 months' time to $1,450 a week. But that's a future Ravi problem. Now, what we can see is that rental increases will happen, and that's just part of the cycle that we're in. But being curious, I wanted to know how much did it cost the owner to actually buy this place? because we've all heard it before. By renting, you're paying someone else's mortgage and they're getting wealthy off your dollar. So I thought, let's figure it out. The property that I live in at the time was worth about $2 million. Now it's worth probably about $2.2 million. So about 10% growth, but it was actually purchased for about $2.2 million. If you think about the performance over the last 5 years, it's pretty much been dog shit. Now let's figure out what upfront costs we would have in order to go and purchase this property, and would we even be able to afford it? So assuming we had the borrowing capacity, a 10% deposit on a $2 million property is $200,000. In addition to that, I would have to pay stamp duty, which would be about $100,000. And then I'd have your conveyancing, your inspections and things like that, which would be about $5,000. So all up, I'm having to put up about $305,000 to just get in the property. So here comes the first hurdle, which is, do I have enough money to actually purchase the place? And I can tell you now, I had enough of a deposit to go and do that, but I chose to do something else instead. You see, with the $300,000, I would then control one asset that I would live in, and that would be fantastic. But then I also still have to make the repayments, right? So let's take a look as to what my repayments would actually look like. Now, knowing that we're putting a 10% deposit down, it would mean that we would have a $1.8 million loan on this house. Now, I'm gonna go interest only on this, and let's put our own interest rate in here, and we'll put 6% here. What we can see is that we have a $9,000 per month repayment to be made, and that's interest only. So if you know what the difference is, it means that my actual balance of 1.8 is not going to be touched. It's going to be just interest repayments that I have to make. And this is how you would calculate the real difference between renting as well as actually owning a home. Because if I owned this home and I'm only paying the interest, that would be the equivalent of me just paying rent, because interest is just wasted money anyway. So $9,000 a month is what I would have to pay. And in addition to this, I would have insurances, as well as I would have council rates and water rates. So that on top means maybe I'm paying about $9,500. Now I live in a penthouse and it's 2 levels. So it's a really nice property. It's got really good city views, and yes, it's fantastic. But I would then also have to pay strata, which would be an added cost. And I can tell you it's quite high in this building. But let's just say for this purpose of this example, it's going to cost about $10,000 per month for me to just own this property. We already know over the last 2 years, it's grown by 10%, so about 5% per year, which is okay. But how does this compare to me living here? Because the owners of this property don't even live in Sydney. In fact, they don't even live in Australia. They're from China. And so what they did was they bought the property and they left it empty. And then they said, well, actually, we might want to earn some income here. And so we've been renting it out, knowing that they have no intentions to ever actually live in Australia. Which means if we wanted to, we could live here for the next 5, 10, 15 years, and I'm pretty sure they're not going to kick us out. We will have to face the issue of an increasing rental amount though. So in this scenario, we've got the $300K, it's locked up in here, plus the $1.8 million worth of borrowing capacity is now locked up in here as well. It means I can no longer purchase any other property. I'm hoping that this property grows, and at 2 million going up by 10%, it means that it's grown by $200,000 over the last 2 years. Which again is a pretty good result. So if my repayments are $10,000, what does it look like equivalent to me actually renting the place? Now in year 1, my rent was $1,200 a week. So $1,200 a week times 52 weeks equals $62,400. And if I'm to divide that by 12, it means that monthly I'm paying $5,200 in year 1. We can already see the big difference here, which is $10,000 versus $5,200. But benefit of doubt, knowing that my rent has increased, it's actually $1,320 now. We're going to times that by 52, divide that by 12, and it means $5,720. If you add some additional costs, it comes to $6,000 because we want to make round numbers easy. Maths is not the concern here. It means a potential saving of $4,000 per month. That is wild, because that is almost $50,000 in the year that I get to potentially save by living in the exact same place and taking the emotions out of it, suggesting, hey, I can live here. I get all the benefits of living here. I just don't have to own it. Now, where it gets really crazy is the $1.8 million worth of borrowing capacity and the $300,000. Because now, by renting, I keep both. I don't have to spend my $300,000, and I don't have to take out loans of $1.8 million. Now, knowing me, I love debt. So what I did was I used the $300K as well as the borrowing capacity, and I went and purchased 4 properties. Now I go ahead and purchase those 4 properties at an average price point of $450,000, means I now control about $1.8 million worth of real estate. That $1.8 million has been growing far greater than the 5% this property's been growing. In fact, it's growing at about 15%, But even if we said worst case, it was growing at 10% a year, that means $360,000, because year one was at $180,000. Year two, although it was compounding, we're still going to say, for the sake of simplicity, another $180,000, which means almost $400,000 worth of equity was being built in my portfolio. And the best part to all of this is that the amount that was taken out of my pocket was actually less than me just simply owning this one property. I get the choice of being able to sell one property or sell a couple of properties. Even though my rent here has increased, those properties have tenants and their rents have increased in those areas too. Those areas have increased a lot faster than the area that I'm living in right now. So you can see the clear difference. I've now got a portfolio which I have choice with, versus me going out there, putting all of my funds into this one asset that I hope is going to grow. The numbers may not be applicable to you because you might be paying less or more rent, and maybe the property you want to purchase is a lot less value. But if the numbers are similar and you go through this exercise, you're going to realize for yourself that logically you would be better off actually rent vesting in 2025 and for the next couple of years. I'm not against buying your dream home. Trust me, I definitely want mine as well. But I would much rather kick the can down the road, invest wisely, have the ability to go and enjoy life, travel, and not have the stress of going, hey, if I can't afford the property, it means I can't travel, I can't live my best life. In fact, I just have to live on tuna cans because I said I wanted this house. Instead, what I could do is I have the portfolio, the rental income is taking care of all of the expenses, and after a couple of years, it'll start paying me more, which will eventually allow me to go and hold my dream property a lot easier. The equity that my portfolio generates will allow me the deposit I need to go and purchase my dream home as well, and I won't have to change my lifestyle significantly. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video and it's provided some insights around how you should actually view this a little differently. I talk a lot about this in my upcoming book, Retire Filthy Rich with Real Estate. Definitely go ahead and pre-order it so you can get some savings as well. I'll leave a link in the description box below. Hope you guys have enjoyed this one. Catch you guys on the next one. Thanks guys.